Like,
Give me 1 second. All right, y'all. I think this is the group for today, since Heidi is on vacation. But Carrie and I touched base really briefly about the agenda, and it looks like we're just going to have a conversation today. But let's just go ahead and start officially calling the meeting to order at 12:31. I believe we have quorum. Do we have any public comment for today?
nope.
No public comment. And then next thing I have on the agenda is approval of the March Commission meeting minutes. And then Carrie, the ones that you sent out are the executive committee meeting minutes, and then are they separate from the full commission meeting minutes?
Yeah, let's talk about that very briefly. So I think that should just say executive committee meeting minutes. But I'm curious what you all think about I kind of polled the other directors of commissions and boards like in OE and so forth and asked them what they were doing, and they're only having their executive committee approve executive committee meeting minutes, and then once approved, like those go, into like the folder or on our Basecamp or whatnot for people to see, and then the full commission approve the full commission meeting minutes. And what we had been doing is having you all sort of do like an advance look, and then it goes, you're approving it to then be reviewed and approved at the full meeting. And I'm just wondering if that's like maybe not efficient. And we should just be like, you all approve exec, full approves full.
I
What
think
do
that's
you think?
smart.
Okay, so that should just say you have the right things to look at and approve, and the agenda just will edit it and fix it to say approve exec committee minutes instead of
Awesome.
full.
Yeah, and I do think that just makes sense.
Yeah. I'll make a motion to approve the March executive committee minutes.
Awesome. I second, and also I think we have a consensus because we have
We
both
have two
interact.
out of three people.
Easy.
I think it works.
But awesome. We executive committee meeting minutes for that March meeting minutes for the executive committee meeting in March have been approved, with the caveat that we'll be updating the agenda for today's meeting to reflect that it was the executive committee meetings that were approved, meeting minutes that were approved, and then just changing the practice of approving full commission meeting minutes at the full commission. But Carrie, do you want to go jump straight into report outs? I know you and I talked about more of just having a conversation. But do you want to do that first?
Yeah, I'm gonna still sort of follow giving that report out, but it's just I think my main change is just I'm not gonna bring up a draft of a potential May agenda for you to look at. I think that's just gonna evolve like as we talk, and then I'll just like close the other issue to say thank you for approving kind of changing that process because it was becoming really confusing to track approvals of the different meetings across the meeting minutes across the meeting. So that is appreciated. A couple of the easy things first. Um, so I wanted to share just some updates with membership and upcoming or potential membership. One, I did want to share that Carrie Vandecoovering uh, did let me know things are a little uh, I think complicated with her and her time right now because she does work in Clackamas County and they're going on strike potentially. So she did give a heads up that her attendance and participation might be a little wonky and just gave us a heads up so we know what's going on with her. She was unable because of some of this to be able to attend the last meeting to give the invited report out so we can go ahead and like extend that for next month and see how that goes. I just wanted to share that she had checked in. Also mentioned that I believe the next due date for applications for the commission are in June with appointments to happen in September. I think we have around 4 potential applicants in the system right now to look at, and then hoping to have our first membership and commission development committee meeting soon. Not sure how that's going to go. Carrie was actually meant to be on that with Jared, and that's just 2 people as it is. And so I might do just another call out. I'll check in with Kelly around kind of like people's availability and this and that, and maybe do another call out to see if others would be willing to participate on that. But they would help do some of that recruitment and then also review some of these applications and participate in interviews and so forth. Along that line, hoping to get a public policy committee scheduled and cadence set for that. We have plenty to talk about. Also, just wanted to share, have a lot of outreach coming up. Oregon Youth Authority Career Fair on the 22nd, which Craig is going to attend with me as an alumni. That'll be at McLaren, presenting on the AmeriCorps Education Awards data that I had shared with the commission, and just starting some of the conversation around recognizing service for credit or training, credit for service or training, other way around, and providing like the update on the NGA Policy Academy work. So that's actually next week, presenting all of that to the WTDB, but that'll be really great because that's getting in front of a lot of like business and college and university presidents and so forth. Um, there's a program for Girl Scouts whose parents are incarcerated or parent is incarcerated at Coffee Creek Correctional Facility, and doing a career fair day with them around AmeriCorps, which is very cool. Also presenting in a couple of weeks to DHS unit for adults with disabilities and sharing a lot about what the opportunities might be there. So we have a lot going on with that. Also recently met with CDWD here at the Hack to talk about service for credit and share out with them some more information around schools for national service and just generally talk about how underutilized and underleveraged AmeriCorps is within the Hack. They're very excited about that. They have some close contacts with some of the small handful of universities and colleges that do currently offer a benefit. And so they offered to maybe set up like a conference call where we could talk to them and kind of find out more about what their experience is like, if people are utilizing it, share some of the data, and kind of get some ideas for then expanding that and opening that up to others, as far as maybe like a network call to talk more about that. Also going to reach out to Dr. Latrissa on our commission because that is actually a passion project for her, topic for her, the credit for service and training. So that is going on. And then we're currently in the middle of doing a big landscape analysis for service to career workforce pathways for our priority focus areas under the NGA Policy Academy. So a lot going on there and some other opportunities that I'm not allowed to talk about, but some maybe hopefully good news on some other funding sources and so forth. And our contact on that team and at the governor's office, Sarah Foster, will be giving a report out to the governor this week on the good work we're doing. So yay for that. On Monday, this is like speed report now. If I want to get to the other stuff. On Monday, I coordinated a visit from Congresswoman Maxine Dexter to Confluence Environmental Center and College Possible. And so wanted to hit them both because they were interested in both of those. So Confluence Environmental Center is going to host staff from both programs and members from both programs at their space at Tabor Space. And so very excited about that. Executive orders, we had submitted our belief that our current practices comply with existing discrimination laws. I know that there's like a lot going on with injunctions with the lawsuits and so forth, but we met what we believe is the minimum compliance request for those executive orders, have not heard anything back. We consider that resolved for now until anything happens with any of those lawsuits or anything happening that AmeriCorps receives from any directives or if once they receive a political appointee. We are making sure we have limitations around what we can, do, obviously. And we're not going to make certain requests because of our guidance and stance in Oregon, and directives from the governor's office. But we are making sure to publicize the executive orders and the like compliance page that AmeriCorps has out and so forth, so that people can make their own choices before they apply, be aware of what the parameters and limitations are that are coming from that segment, and like self-assess on how they want to address that. And so we are just making sure that people are aware and informed of that landscape. We've extended our grant deadline from I think like third week of April to May 2nd to give more time and room for people to be aware of that, to sort of do some additional outreach with some potential, other grantee applicants and so forth, and potential other opportunities or things we might do with planning grant funding and so forth. Still hearing from AmeriCorps that competitive grants reviews are going to be delayed, and formula grants still may not be awarded till mid to late August. So I just share that with you all because I think it's going to become important when we start seeing that certain programs, especially like school-based ones and so forth, are kind of stressing because that's late for them to be aware of their grant and for recruitment and maybe like having placements in place with like partners and service sites and stuff. So that's what's going on with that. So those are those updates. That was pretty quick, about 7 minutes, I think. But getting to why this is a very stressful day is that so Doge was at AmeriCorps last week, and I assume that that was coming because they had been at Peace Corps the week before. And we're in that family, and so I do want to I'm sure you've seen things in the news, so we are aware of that. They're being transparent about that. There is probably, you're also seeing in the news and press coverage, some information was shared out on various social media platforms and forums, some screenshots of AmeriCorps' potential, or AmeriCorps', I guess, report in, as all agencies have been required to do, how they would handle a required reduction in force or RIF or reduction in staff. And I think most have been required to say, like, how would you do this and how would you restructure if you had to like cut 50% of staff and whatnot. And so as other agencies were requested to do, AmeriCorps had to do that as well. No idea on what's going to happen with that. Others, I think, are putting out, there's some rumors around like, oh, all is going to be cut and da 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 da, and that there's no confirmation on that. And I know that our national association is not necessarily hearing that, but we are receiving guidance that it'd be a good idea for us to, like, have plan Bs and things like that in place. So I'm working to make sure that, we're getting our like no con our extension requests in for our unspent funds, and ESG and KIF applications or operating grants are actually due next Wednesday. I'll probably try to get those in Monday. It's gonna be a good working weekend for me, but want to get those in. Just we want to be cognizant of the fact that if a reduction in force did happen, that additional like delays could happen, and so just really focusing on prioritizing reducing in as much as possible, mitigating any delay to access funds that could end up occurring. So that's kind of what's going on there. Did somebody have their hand raised just now?
Ellie, was that a question or added a comment?
It was a fat finger, my bad.
Oh, okay, no worries. Um, so that is what's going on. There's also notice put out that Public Health AmeriCorps is officially going to end.
Mm.
That was not brand new news because
Mm.
that's a previous administration's initiative. And so
Mhm.
the expectation was, yes, after this 3 years, and I don't know if you'll remember, but that was actually a combination of ARPA funds and CDC ARPA funds
Mm.
that did that.
Mm.
And so that was a collaboration between them. And so it was the expectation that at the end of this 3-year grant that would discontinue. So I think that the big news is that they're not going to grant extensions on those funds. And so that's it. It's very much ending. We do not have any Public Health AmeriCorps grants. None were awarded through the state process or the competitive process, but they are operating in Oregon as part of the National Direct Grants. And Jesuit Corps is one of those Public Health AmeriCorps funds. And Greg, our commission member, is the director, ED of Jesuit Corps. So that bookmark, we might want to check in with him and provide feedback on that sector of work next meeting as well. But generally, I think there's just, yeah, obviously nothing confirmed, but as we have seen a pattern of kind of how other agencies have been impacted by the reviews of Doge, um, obviously concerns there of how that could affect things, specifically a reduction in force that could further delay things and access to funding. And at the leadership convening, ask had been pretty clear of, here are some ways to reduce inefficiencies and duplications and activities around grant making, like, reach out to all of us. Like we have ideas. Don't try to keep doing all the same things with less people, right? And so I know that those conversations are continuing. Um, but there obviously we would have concerns around, again, like grant funds becoming available. So I think that it's just important for that. Obviously, there is also the greater conversation around what's going to happen with AmeriCorps funding in general. And I would just say that, I mean, I think that uh, the recommendation, which is always a recommendation, but definitely a recommendation now, is to get as many, is to really raise the visibility of the impact and importance of AmeriCorps. And volunteer program funding, by the way. I really always like to make sure we remember that we have multiple focus areas as a commission, and that these are part of the same, group and part of the same thread of potential funding reductions. Um, so any work that can be done for education visits, letters, impact sharing things, social media, and just like I said, and not, I know that ask is really asking, and through States for Service, really asking for people to really reach out to Congress. So we do have Dexter coming. Um, we've had we just met with Bonamici and Merkley staff, and I don't think I'm going to be successful asking them for a visit with what's going on, but we've got Wyden I can invite, but and some others, but I think even just state representatives, because I bel I think it's important to consider potential need for mitigating funding loss through state funds.
Definitely. Thanks
So
for
that's
that.
my spiel. That's my update. I leave
Thanks
it
for
to
the
you to
update.
discuss what to do next.
I
Questions?
somehow completely missed that Doge visited AmeriCorps. And is there I'm searching it and I can't find any article. Like WashPo has
Um,
like a 2 sentence thing just saying that it happened, but I'm not
yeah,
even seeing
so go to, I hate to say this, but go to Twitter and Reddit.
oh, and I don't have Twitter, so I can't, but I'll check out Reddit. I don't know how I missed that.
There's
I
some
mean,
links there with some of the stories and blah, but there it's pretty, I don't think there's as much news as some of the other
right.
agency visits, and
Um,
AmeriCorps, isn't as big, and I think, yeah, I mean, I think there's only just so much news at this but there's been a little bit, you'll find some links a little bit on that there was a visit, but yeah, I don't have any more information really.
yeah. Um, did the CR include any changes to AmeriCorps funding?
So the CR was really just well, no,
I didn't think
I
so
mean,
because it
that
was
was
just to
just
like
through
keep
September.
things
So in
going.
September is when we'll know more.
Right. Okay, that's what I thought. I wanted
Like,
to make sure.
yeah.
Okay. Also as a reminder, Carrie, when you're doing your Schools for National Service, remember that I'm on the Pacific Alumni Board.
Mhm.
And I serve on a committee that I think would be a good connection to create that program at Pacific if that's something that we end up.
Yeah. Do you want to invite me to a meeting and I can come and do an
Yeah,
impassioned spiel about it?
I sure
Because
can.
you know how I get going.
I will make a note of that. That's a great idea.
Yeah, that would be great to continue those connections, especially at um, institutions of higher education. I just so happen to also be connected to Pacific, but I know
Right.
that they have hosted AmeriCorps members before, so it's not like they're just being asked out of the blue. Like they have an understanding of what the program is and the value that it brings, and so it's one step closer to what else can you do in the world of AmeriCorps. So that's really awesome if you were able to make that introduction, Sierra. And then I had the same question that Sierra did, where they were mentioning to my understanding last time we checked in, it was pending on what's going to happen with the budget. And then the budget did pass, but at current service levels. And so then that continuing resolution, to my understanding, was okay, AmeriCorps can breathe for a while, but it sounds like we still have yet to see a couple more things in terms of money and being able to receive the normal amount of grants funding levels that we are to be able to disperse. And is that connected to the budget piece or is that connected to Doge or is it kind of all
I mean,
everything
it's
is
all
up in the air
connected.
because it's connected.
It's all connected. I mean, there's obviously concern around like delays and any sort of recension of funds of current funding, which is this like
Mm,
current 24 funds. And then when you get into, well, I mean, it crosses too, but then you get into 25 and then you get, in the upcoming like next year's grant budget. And so the concern there is that there would be a reduction in that funding that would
mm.
impact AmeriCorps and its operations next year. I know that there's budget approvals and new drafts coming out like literally as we speak and yesterday, but I haven't seen anything yet from um, Tyler or anyone on any line items for AmeriCorps. I just have seen a lot of news around like what's happening with the federal workforce and the different cuts happening there as far as
Gotcha.
retirement and pay and different things like that. But I would encourage, I think for sure, I need to get into states versus on my own time. And Sierra, I think if you could check in there and kind of see, and we could be prepared to talk about that during the public policy committee meeting
Mm,
too, for sure, and maybe do a little bit of planning around kind of what we want to present at that based on
mm,
some of the updates coming out. And it might be, as we talk about agenda planning in general right now, because I know we just have a few minutes left, would it be that maybe we would want to have Tyler come to the public policy committee meeting
mm-hmm.
I think that'd be
and
cool.
Kyra to the May commission meeting?
I would welcome both of those ideas
Yeah.
just because things are happening so quickly that I think it's best to hear from those two folks who are very tuned in. And I think those are the appropriate spaces, is inviting Kyra to the full commission and seeing what updates are able to be given right now, knowing that there is a lot up in the air. And the reason for my original question was because I know that on the federal level, it is depending by agency, but a lot of folks are being told that you still have to do the same thing, but with less people, and then most of the time, like with less money. And so I'm just trying to like paint the picture of like what does that mean for the AmeriCorps agency, and then trickle down like down to our commission as well. But I know that we'll receive more clarity just as time goes by because it's one of those things that like we don't know much until we kind of get there. But Kyber might be able to provide just some context, and then maybe some commission members also have some questions as well. I do think it would be I see on the agenda today that maybe a report out that you were going to give was legislative updates, and I know that last time we talked about
Oh,
state
yes,
level,
sorry.
but I think if anything at the full commission at the full commission meeting, we could just give a small update because session isn't over, but we have passed deadlines of work sessions, so there are certain bills that never made it out of committee. If anything, we could just say like
Yeah, I
these
can give
are
an update
still
on
these
that.
are still active. These have died. We'll provide a full update after session has closed because then we know like how that moves forward. But I think if anything, that's the only update we need since some deadlines have passed. But I think your idea of
Just,
um
I mean, it's only what, an hour and a
yeah,
half meeting. Like, I think we could easily fill it with Kyra and those other updates for
exactly.
And
sure.
I was looking this morning, it looks like HB 2399 and 2655 have not progressed at all. There's still no meetings scheduled or floor sessions or anything. They've been referred to various committees and they're still just sitting there.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I remiss. I completely skipped over that part of the agenda. Moved into commission plan meeting planning. HB 3754 was the primary one that we were tracking and involved with, where I was allowably able to then participate in some discussion around it and feedback because I was contacted by staffers, and even though it didn't make it through the GRB. And that was the one relating to the Orvid database going over to OEM. There were some concerns from different parties around a piece in there that was saying that they all should use it, and they had some of their own systems. And so that ended up eventually, essentially what happened is it was supposed to have a work session on the deadline. It was on the schedule, and at the end of the hearing, they did say they're not moving it forward through a
Mm,
work session. So it did die. I did actually provide some testimony at the public hearing for it. And then, yeah, I thought it looked good with the work session, but it did die. But we're looking at plan Bs and are in conversation with people because obviously we need to keep that system operational for emergency response volunteer management. So I'm not too worried about it, but it is unfortunate. Um, but I'll probably have some better updates like on that next, and then some other ones that could end up impacting us. So I'll keep you posted. But yeah, I'm happy to coordinate these invites for those
Mhm.
future meetings for sure.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
And one other question, Carrie. I know that oh my gosh, what do I know? I
No, no.
completely lost my train of thought.
I hate when that happens. I'll talk about other things so maybe we don't come back.
Yeah, it's completely gone. Go for it.
I don't know.
I do know
Um,
that it sounds like between now and the next full commission meeting, um, the Public Policy Committee should be meeting,
that's what I'm hoping, yeah.
and then the membership committee as well. Those are the hopes. So if
So
anything,
they
we'll
should
be,
have updates, yeah.
yeah, so we should have updates this time because I think in the past meetings we've said right now we're in the process of coordinating these meetings, but now maybe if anything, we'll say these are the focuses that we've identified as a committee that we'll be working on. There doesn't need to be a full update, but just the update that we're meeting, we've identified like priority focuses and we'll be continuing to meet, but we'll make sure to make space at that agenda for the full commission in May.
Great.
Yeah.
I remembered
I
what I
think
was gonna
we're
say.
good.
Yeah. I'm a fundraiser, so I'm seeing, all of these various large Oregon foundations that are coming out and earmarking money for groups that are being impacted by these federal cuts. Do we at all anticipate getting support from some of those public foundations to fill in gaps if we do have any funding loss and
Um,
sort of like
I
increasing that?
I would say that that is an area of concern.
Yeah.
I do not have anything to say as insofar as that the state would make up for anything. I think that that is something we should probably talk about, whether that becomes an ask or potential discussion. But
Mm.
I'd like to think that and hope that um, it won't come to that, but I think
Right,
it's something we should be prepared for. My
right.
big concern, obviously, Sarah and Daniel, would be that something would happen during current service terms right now.
Yeah. Have there
And
been
that
any delays
there would
with the
be any
current?
loss of federal funding that would relate to and that would turn into any currently serving member. And I'm not trying to like alarm anybody by saying this, and this is not what we've been told. We're planning or mitigation planning. My concern would be that we would find organizations not receiving federal funds and members not receiving stipends.
Yeah.
And so obviously needing some backfill from someone to address that because we will be looked at to do that. And I think that that is legitimate.
Yeah. Has the current grant review process been at all delayed because of this?
That is the whole, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
so our deadline for people to apply for formula grants
Mhm.
is May 2nd.
Okay.
And then normally we would find out, like end of June from AmeriCorps, or in, mid-July from AmeriCorps if that's approved. Normally we would probably know competitive results by
Right.
now because those have been
Mhm.
sent in and already applied for
Hmm.
next year. This is both for like the terms that start in like August.
Right, right, right.
So that is what they're telling us is going to be delayed. And
Right,
so um also that once we do turn in the Formula Ones, getting the, notice back from AmeriCorps would also be delayed.
right,
And
right,
so
right.
that is one thing. And if there's any funding changes or cuts to funding, then obviously that's a whole other story of whether or not there would be service terms starting in August. I I do worry, obviously we
Yeah.
should also always
About
worry
now.
about if anybody currently serving we would somehow find a situation where there would not be funds to pay them.
Right.
Hmm. And I know that or I guess
So I think that we're gonna want to think about those people. Sorry, Sarah,
and
that you're
I think we're thinking the same thing. I think one point of clarity that I would like both for the executive committee but also for the full commission is what role do we take if that does happen?
yes.
Because like are we the ones that are applying for these philanthropies? Because I do know that a lot of philanthropy like organizations, they do stopgap measures. Like if you come with a plea to them and say like our normal grant has been disrupted and this will disrupt operations and this is the impact it has on community, they respond to that very well. Foundations do. But it's with a short, small stopgap measure, but there is options, and I do some development work as well. So like I can help with the landscape of who we should go to, but the important part is knowing what role we're taking, whether we are the ones applying for these funds if needed, or exploring, or if we are facilitators to say like, hey, we are going to convene a roundtable between some AmeriCorps programs that are like struggling and need stopgap funding, et cetera, and we'll meet, we'll bring some foundation partners and we'll facilitate, but just keeping really clear what is our role if plan B, C, D, like you said, Carrie, if we need to do some planning, what role do we take on? Because we need to be prepared ahead of time. I think part of that planning is saying like, what is our role and how do we activate it rather than like getting there and then being like, what are we supposed to do? Like, what is
Yeah.
our role?
I appreciate that. We're gonna go a few minutes over. If you all have it, I
Yeah.
also would say, do we want to make these 45 minutes and not 30 just for the time being, now that it's a little bonkers, but to think about. But I think that is a very good point. Do you believe that we should have that conversation in the upcoming public policy meeting? Because eventually, I mean, we would possibly be saying this is a policy of the commission, in any emergency, this is how we might act, blah, 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 blah. And then go from there and present that out, or present that back to next executive committee. Would you want me to um
I think two things. One,
also,
definitely
like, well,
have
the other
that.
thing I was gonna say, Daniel, is should I also, if I receive notice, call of anything related to this, call an emergency executive committee meeting? Do I have your request that I do that?
Yes, I think
Yes.
that would be very needed. Let's start the conversation in the public policy space
Okay.
because like the right thought partners are in there. And I think what also will need to happen is I'm also putting it on your plate or um planting the seed to like talk to your agency leadership within HEC to say
Right,
like,
right, right, right.
what are we legally like allowed to do? Like,
Mm,
are we like allowed to apply? Or if not, are we only allowed to write letters of support? Are we even allowed to do that? Because all of these pieces are part of like grant making.
Yeah.
And
And we
so like,
do currently apply for
right.
private grants
gotcha.
and get
Okay.
them. So
Yeah.
that's great. But I do think that there's that, yeah, I mean, that is an interesting conversation around also like how far we can go with emergency assistance funding or foundational funding, even our
Yeah.
own foundation and
But I
whatnot.
think bringing that to the public policy committee, the very next one, works with the timeline. The sooner that we
Okay.
can talk about it, the better.
Okay. Okay.
It's only been like 90 days, y'all.
Oh my goodness. Will you have any
About the long haul.
But who's
staffing?
counting?
Is there anything staffing updates wise, Carrie? I know that that was a point of conversation, just saying like things are on pause, things might not come back. We might be consolidating and working with Heck to see how we can like spread the word. But is there any update on that, or should we just put a pin on it until there's an actual update a little bit more in the future?
A little bit of an update is that we are budgeting for that required halftime recruitment position that was vacated by Priscilla. We are not going to hire for it until after budgets have passed, so that we actually, we're not going to hire someone and then a month later find out that like we've got a reduction in funding or something. So once we know that, so that is sort of like on pause until September, which is leading to me to rethink a little bit about like how we would handle like kickoff and this
Mm,
and that, because that hits around that time. I think we're leaning towards more of like an all-purpose like member conference to kind of address like kickoff and life after, both for
mm,
like efficiency, cost efficiency, et cetera, and addressing capacity. We will lose the disaster services position. We still need that volunteer services coordinator position, but it did not make it into session or GRB. Um, we are we have transitioned that disaster services position into our position authority for the fiscal officer and compliance position, which was also an LD and funded by ARPA. And we currently have an internal recruitment out for that, which, current and other current staff and other applicants will be applying for, and I think interviewing for in the end of this month. Um, and yeah, that's pretty much where we are at. We may utilize some contractors for other things, especially with some of the like private grants that we've, awards we've gotten and work that we're doing. And but otherwise nothing, no real big moves right now. So and also, it's been a little hard to kind of follow up on the state service plan civic health index stuff with these things going on, but I'm intending to get the draft RFP for facilitator in for that, like next week, with the anticipation that that work will likely start another month or two, and then probably be a big focus of like our annual meeting in September.
Awesome. I think that's a great plan, and I think we have more than enough to formalize an agenda for a meeting that we don't have a lot of time for. Time flies by whenever we have those commission meetings, so I think we have plenty of content. Is there anything that we need to cover today before we
Do you
close?
remember off the top of your head when the September meeting is, Carrie?
Oh, I don't think we set the date, did we?
Great, I didn't miss anything. Okay.
I think we were waiting.
We set, oh, for the retreat part?
Yeah, and then also like AmeriCorps did say they anticipate symposium happen, but I don't know that date yet either, and that's always in September, so kind of waiting to hear about that.
Gotcha. Kelly, can you confirm? You're a good
I
person.
think we were like
It's correct.
waiting.
Yeah,
I did think
we have not
yeah.
scheduled anything for September at this time.
Gotcha.
I
Thank
think we
you.
kind of gave people a heads up, but we were waiting to kind of find out some other things and just confirm like when does school start or like what's
Well,
going
something to add to that is my gala is the 18th.
on of September.
Yes. So if at all possible, preferably after that, but also do not schedule it 100% around me, obviously.
We'll do a mention that that's something that is coming up, just so that it stays fresh on people's radars. That we're gonna have a retreat in September, and that we'll be sending a poll of some sorts or narrowing down dates, just so that folks, if they have something already scheduled in book like Sierra, they can vocalize that with enough time ahead. But we are to the close of our agenda. I'll give it another second to see if anyone has anything else.
I'll just add on to what you said that I think like after the 18th makes sense anyways. I need to check the dates for like when an anticipated like federal budget might come out in September. And then I think with like the symposium usually being at the beginning of September and school starting meeting September, like
Right.
I think that that's going to work out. So
Awesome. I think that that's going to work out for most folks as well. Just knowing how busy September usually gets, with all of the above mentioned that you just listed, Carrie. But if nothing else, I think we are good. Call the meeting to a close at 1:08. And I think that's it for today, y'all.
Have a good weekend, everybody.
Have a great weekend. Good to
Bye.
see y'all.
Everybody.
Ciao.
good seeing you.